Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 3 of the Small Empires Hangouts. I'm Sam Sheffer, the Verge Social Media Manager, and we are here with a bunch of awesome people. And I'll allow everyone to introduce themselves, starting with Steven, going this way.
Sorry, I just realized I had a fake beard on there for a second. Hey, I'm Stephen Greenwood. I'm the producer of Small Empires, and I'm very happy to be here today with the Two Roads Brew.
Nice.
Hey everybody, I'm Kirk Larson. I'm the director of Small Empires, and I'm also psyched and also got a beer. Two Roads folks, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Go right ahead, Phil.
Okay, Phil Markowski, a brewmaster at Two Roads. I have a beer as well. A bit early in the day for me, even though I've been known to taste beer at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is it's part of my job.
My name is Brad Hiddle. I'm the CEO of Two Roads. Phil and I are partners with two other guys here, and couldn't be happier to be sitting here chatting about beer. I have an array of beers. I have the bigger one.
That's fair. I think that comes with the perks, right?
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like the odd man out. I'm Alexis Ohanian, and I'm drinking coffee.
Yeah, but you're jet lagged. Beer is not a solution to jet lag.
So let's talk about the episode. Phil and Brad, if you want to talk about Two Roads Brewing Company and sort of what makes you guys different and why Small Empires do an episode on your guys' brewery.
Sure. Well, Two Roads is unique in a lot of respects. When we got started, unlike a lot of breweries that get started, they start out with a smaller brewing system and grow out of that, and then dispose of it and get a new one, or invest a lot more money and slow down, disrupt the operation to get a whole new brewery brought in, and then grow into that. And so it's a tiered growth strategy. We decided to get a little daring and build a much larger brewery from the get-go. The objective was just to be able to grow into something. It's like if you build it, they will come. But obviously that comes with its challenges because you've got a lot of tanks and you've got a lot of overhead to absorb, and financially that's tough. So our strategy was to do a two-pronged business approach, two roads, if you will. One is to make beer for other craft breweries. And at the same time, by doing that absorbs some of the costs, which enables us as a brewery to very carefully and nurturingly develop our own brand, the Two Roads brand, which is a very difficult thing to do in today's beer environment, because in 1980 there were 30 breweries in the United States. Today there are over 3,500. So to stand out against the crowd, you got to do some very unique and different things. And our approach is we're paying the bills, so to speak, so that affords us more time to carefully develop our brand and not feel like we have to throw it out there and just get it out and hope it sells, because a lot of beers are at risk of collecting dust on the shelf doing that. So that's the beauty of the business strategy. On the other hand, Phil can tell you a little bit about the fact that he immediately liked the proposition of Two Roads, the philosophy of Two Roads, which comes from Robert Frost and taking a different path in life. Phil immediately loved it from a brewing point of view. Why don't you explain that part?
Yeah, just to address the rationale for the business. Brad was alluding to that we built a larger brewery. We have partners that we brew for. For people whose facility is either maxed out and they can't produce more beer even though there's greater demand, they're accommodated, or they don't have the capital to build their own facility. We partnered up with people like that, and I had been on the other side of that equation for many years, and what was seriously lacking was a modern facility to brew craft-style beers. A lot of the facilities that were out there, no offense to them, but they were built to accommodate one brand and a macro-type lager, and not craft-type beers. So there was a serious demand, and it turned out to be far greater than we anticipated. There's the demand for craft style partner brewers. So that was phase one of our two-pronged plan, and then there was obviously the Two Roads brands, which to date we've done in less than 2 years. We've done 25 different brands. So we're our emphasis is growing Two Roads, and the philosophy behind it is that we again, this ties into the name somewhat. We put our own unique spin on each brand that we do. We do some traditional styles, and we respectfully reproduce them, but we also have our own twist to them. For example, we do a Factory Pilsner as one of our flagship beers, and we produce it in such a way that it's very classic German-style Pilsner. However, we depart from tradition in the fact that we dry hop it. So each one of the brands has a unique spin to it that makes it our own, and that's kind of the other road less traveled, if you will, philosophy that we apply to our own brands. And we're producing beers from familiar Pilsner types to unique styles. We just released a very limited amount of a beer that's fermented with balsamic vinegar, which was the real stuff, the 14-year-old traditionally produced balsamic vinegar, which if you've never had it, it actually can be more sweet than it is sour. So we made a beer with that, and to our knowledge, no one else has done that before. So we're still doing cutting-edge things. We're doing sour beers that take 18 to 24 months to produce. We have a barrel aging program in place. Kind of all the things that craft brewers are doing today, we're doing here, and then some. So a lot of stuff going on.
So I have a question about the building. Was the building that you selected, was that your kind of first and immediate choice to locate the facility?
Yes. I mean, the original plan, we're all from Connecticut, except Clem, but he used to work here for years. We're all familiar with all the decrepit brick manufacturing building going up and down I-95 throughout the Northeast, and in particular in Connecticut, because Stratford and Bridgeport used to be a haven for manufacturing. And we wanted to rehabilitate one of those buildings. That was in the plan. We made sure all of our financial investors were aware of that because it required more money to invest in rebuilding and rehabilitating. We could have done a greenfield, but we didn't want to do that. And then going out and finding one of those brick buildings that was suitable for brewing was quite a challenge because you need. We found one in Bridgeport, but it had to be modified structurally to accommodate tall fermenting tanks, and the neighborhood wasn't quite as good. So, but yeah, that was the original intent. And then we found this building here in Stratford. It's 100 years old. It's a brick manufacturing building, and when we walked in, we said, "Holy shit! This is the place for Two Roads. This is the home." It has very high manufacturing ceilings. It's got two really large mezzanines on either side, so that you can put a tasting room in there on one side and storage and other equipment on the other, and things underneath the mezzanines. And we just knew right away it was perfect. And we also didn't know right away that it was going to be perfect for a tasting room, because the place was covered in grease. The manufacturing joists had that much dust and filament on top. We had guys up there with leaf blowers cleaning them off before we power washed the building. It was an amazing exercise, but worth every penny, because then all of a sudden we discovered that there were 100-year-old maple wood floors, and all we had to do was to get the grease off and refinish them, and it was a stunning setting, because you got these stainless steel kettles arising through these 100-year-old beautiful maple floors. And it was such a unique setting for a tasting room. We poured it on. We were way over budget, way over budget when we got done with the whole thing. It was insane.
Paid off.
But it really paid off. And when people come in now to the tasting room, like when we first started, a lot of people came in and said, "Hey, where's the TV? Come on, you can't have a place with it." And we said, "You're not getting one."
Mhm.
And
Sorry.
if you go in there now and ask people, hey, would you like us to put in a TV? The immediate reaction is absolutely do not put a TV in here. Because all walks of life come in here, all demographics, and it's such a unique, cool setting. The story's all about the beer, and people who don't know each other come in and they talk to each other, and they enjoy the social interaction. Now, you guys were there. I mean, it really is.
I will say that I've visited a couple breweries. I'm not an expert by any means, but I was so blown away to see the tasting room right around like 5 or 6 p.m. when people start getting off work, what it turns into in the evenings.
It was great.
Yeah, it turned out.
It really is amazing.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It definitely felt like it was kind of a hub, a community hub in Stratford almost when we were visiting. So kudos to you guys for making an incredible space.
Long-winded answer, but the building was a big part of it.
I've got a question for you guys. Have there ever been requests for certain flavors that you guys didn't have the technology or equipment to make, and what did you do to get around that?
Good question. Well, yeah, it is a good question. We've had people ask for things like gluten-free beer. Why don't we make a gluten-free beer? Or an NA beer? Those are both sort of typical questions that people would ask. And truth is, it's very difficult to make an NA beer, believe it or not. So we don't have the technology to do that. But any other conventional beer, we would have the technology to do. I mean, we have a state-of-the-art system here. We have access to ingredients from all over the world, and we use ingredients from all over the world. So there's really nothing that technologically we can't do except for an NA beer.
Can you explain what that is? I'm not really sure what that is.
Non-alcoholic?
Oh, just NA is non-alcoholic.
Drop the subject now.
Oh, okay. That's silly.
No, that's good for all of our listeners who may not be familiar. No, wait, I'm a train of thought. What's something you all do? What's one of the brews? What's something you're most proud of in terms of like a thing you were able to pull off where everyone was like, I mean, like this vinegar one sounds like a cool beer, but anything in particular is just like, yeah, like we are badasses for having pulled this off in our brewery.
Well, this might be one here. This is Urban Funk.
Can you hold it up close?
How's that?
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah, there we go.
This is a beer that we, believe it or not, started working on before the brewery was even outfitted. So while we're doing the build out in the brewery, we partnered up with a couple of biology professors from Sacred Heart University, which is in Fairfield. It's just 10 miles down the road, if that. And we started trying to isolate wild yeasts from the brewery environment. So we enlisted these professors with their expertise, and they came in and they set up what they call traps, biological traps, around the brewery, and they captured organisms, be it wild yeast, airborne bacteria, you name it. And there's a stew of things around us all the time, every day, and we don't necessarily realize it. But we were trying to capture something that would work in beer. Now, a lot of organisms won't last in an environment like beer or wine because the alcohol kills them off. So just as little as 1% alcohol kind of wipes out a lot of stuff. So it took a lot of experimentation, and we finally found a yeast, and really it was an assortment of bacteria that would survive in a beer environment, and 4 or 5% alcohol. And we isolated that, and we kind of put it in the bag, so to speak. And then once we were up and operational, we began experimenting again with using that in a smaller scale batch. So there was a lot of trial and error. There was more failures than successes initially to isolate this yeast. But once we found it, we were able to make Urban Funk. So it's what we call a captured yeast series, where we have it's the first of hopefully several in that series, and we just captured another one this past summer that we like, that's got a different characteristic, but it's right from our site. So that brings new definition to the term local beer. And it's the key ingredient arguably is yeast, and we have one that's truly from our site. And so that was Urban Funk, and the subsequent beers that we produced with captured yeast from the site here have yet to be named.
Phil, I'm looking on Beer Advocate, and it says that the yeast was captured during Superstorm Sandy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Was it just because it was so humid before the rain started, or just the timing?
Just the timing. I mean, one theory we have is that perhaps because it was a hurricane, that maybe this particular yeast may have come into the area from further away.
It was a hitchhiker.
And yeast. Yeah.
And so that's one theory. I mean, I have, frankly, mixed feelings about mentioning the hurricane because a lot of people suffered during it. So
Right.
I don't want to make light of it, but that was true. That's when it was isolated.
So I have a question for people out there who might be watching and interested in the business aspect of it. Can you kind of share any lessons that you've kind of learned through this process, or for somebody that's thinking maybe 10 years down the line that they would love to open a brewery with a couple of their friends in their hometown? What would you say to them?
Double the budget.
About triple.
That applies to everything, right?
It really does. It's strictly from a startup brewery point of view. You should always be thinking about where you want to be, not in the first year, but really where you want to be 10 years later, and then build everything back accordingly. And once you do that, then that's going to help you understand the viability of your business, the attractiveness of it, to if you need to get investors. But really thinking that through is so important. Everybody can have a dream to open a brewery, but you really have to understand what you're going to do 10 years later, because it's not it requires a huge amount of time commitment. Your lifestyle has to be incredibly dedicated, and unless you kind of know where you're going to get, you might get frustrated 2 or 3 years later, and then kind of go, "Oh, this isn't working for me." You don't want it. Nobody wants to end up doing that. So, just a massive amount of planning.
Are you talking like waking up at 6 a.m. every morning?
Oh yeah, I mean, we're not waking up at 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning and worrying until 6, and then going to work.
Are you just at the mercy of the yeast and the customer, right? There's a lot of
And the banker and the rest of the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But for us, the key learning also was equipment, and making sure that you don't shortchange yourself on equipment. We bought brand new everything. We were in a luxurious position to do it because we knew we had to raise enough money to do it right. We wanted to do it right the first time, and we brought brand new everything. The 1 or 2 pieces of equipment that were used, they crapped out. So you really have to, you've got to cross all the T's and dot the I's and make sure you're getting the right equipment. You have a well thought out plan, and then cross your fingers and get ready for a wild ride.
I have a question related to the business side of things. Do you guys have more business from making your own branded beers, or is this most of your business come from brewing for other people?
The early going, the plan was to have very small percentage of the total volume out of this brewery would be 2 rows. That was deliberate, and so that's still the case. Mm-hmm. And we expect that mix to change over time as we carefully grow 2 roads. And again, I think I mentioned before, we're in a nice position where we don't have to want to rush it, and we can do it right. And that means, making great beer, putting it in the right packaging, carefully selecting distributors if you're going to go the route of distribution.
Because it seems like you guys have the formula already. If you're producing, so many different beers for so many other people, it's like, why can't you just do this yourselves? Do it for your own company, so to speak.
Well, I mean, Phil's got all the product development in his mind. He's got 25 years of brewing experience. I'll tell you a scary story. When we first started up, I said, Phil, don't you want to do some pilot tests on some of these beers we're going to make? And he's like, nah, I got it all up here. That's not working for me.
Better get insurance on that brain, man. Well, this episode was very well loved, and in particular, there's a community on Reddit, r/CT Beer. That is the Connecticut beer community. It is a Connecticut subreddit for beer.
There's a subreddit for everything.
There is, and this happens to feature people who are homebrewers who just live in Connecticut and love beer, go to the festivals, etc. And this episode is actually the #1 story there. And I don't know how familiar you all are with the Connecticut beer community subreddit, but you're clearly well known within the Connecticut beer community, and I imagine there's quite a bit of overlap. Have you all, what is it about Connecticut? This is something we got into on camera that didn't make it into the episode, but, a state like Portland, very well known for craft beer, right? Everyone, you can't go to Portland without someone fucking telling you about their craft beer. Where is Connecticut in not, I don't want to rank it, but how evolved is it? Where is the craft beer scene there? And in all of New England?
I guess I'll take a stab at it anyway. I was familiar with the Connecticut beer scene where I first started 1989 with New England Brewing Company in Connecticut, and I can say that it's come light years from then to now. If I were to equate it in terms of a human lifespan, I may say that Connecticut is currently in its teen years.
Drinking in its teen years, sir?
18.
Okay. Right.
But I think it's really just getting going here, and the market is maturing. Perhaps it's going through a growth spurt, if I can use that terminology. But I think it's definitely behind other parts of the country, clearly. But it's finally come around, and quite honestly, I wasn't sure I'd ever see this day. So I say it's a very positive development, and we're certainly on the right course. And based on the reception we've gotten, from the majority of the local population here, I think it's it's really going to become even more craft centric.
If we help you out, would you be willing to do an Ask Me Anything interview on the CT Beer Community website?
Of course.
I'm not saying I can answer everything, but we'll try.
Oh yeah, we can get that set up. But I think what's so cool is we saw it firsthand in the physical tasting room, right? We saw these people from all over who got off work and came in. We're seeing it online with all these people who are like, yeah, Connecticut beer pride. It's interesting to see this community take place in so many different ways, all connecting over, a drink.
You know what's kind of cool about that, Alexis, is when we were hanging out near the bar, people who didn't know that we were shooting, this is especially when Steven and I went back for more footage, it was just like people would turn and be like, have you been here before? This place is awesome, isn't it? And yeah, I've been here before. And they're like, I love craft brew. Steven and I got stuck in a conversation with this person who had never tasted craft brew before a year ago and was just like evangelizing nonstop.
He specifically told us he would roll up to parties with
a 36 of Heineken.
Well, it was Heineken. Yeah, he would only drink Heineken.
Yeah, that was the only thing he drank.
He got his first tip a year ago.
One thing I'll tell you about Connecticut that's really interesting is when we started thinking about this whole thing, which was early 2011, late 2010, there were less than 10 breweries in the state, and today there are, I think, 28 or 29. Connecticut is under-recognized in the rest of the country for the quality of beers that are produced, not just by Two Roads, but by every brewery in Connecticut. We know them all. We've had a Connecticut Beer Festival here, and we all go around and taste their beers. Every brewer in Connecticut is making great beer. I think we get short shrift as a state, but that's being changed. that's definitely being changed, not just by Two Roads, but by everybody in the state, because the production quality is really good.
So I have a question from Twitter from somebody that's following along. This is from Kid Swoosh. Shout out to Kid Swoosh. Ooh. He asks, from a business perspective, if you could do anything different, what would you do? And I think you maybe alluded to it earlier, but is there anything specific that comes to mind that you would redo?
I mean, from a business strategy, no. I think that the main thing that we might have done is have invested more on the first day in more fermentation capacity, because we woefully underestimated how many people were interested in having their beers made at Two Roads.
So even though you guys started big, you would have started bigger.
Well, that's something that we would have considered. On the other hand, you know, the more you take on in the early days, the more vulnerable you are to, from a learning curve point of view, of making a bad mistake, and that would have been that wouldn't have been great for us, to have a customer be disappointed in what we made for them, or to have one of our beers have to be dumped on numerous occasions. So, you know, that's debatable, but I think that's something we probably could have considered a little more. Any?
Well, you know, we made mistakes, but we wanted, you know, thankfully we made most of the mistakes on our own products. We started out with things in our, you know, it's a very big, complex place, as you witnessed. So it took a while to get used to the equipment. You know, it's complicated and it's big.
The social part about it was a learning curve for us too. You know, we had a tap room, and we didn't have enough capacity in the tap room, so early on it was crowded. I think some people got frustrated. You know, a few things that we would probably do differently up there, but I think it's going pretty well now. These are all things that most breweries or small businesses experience when you open up. You make a lot of mistakes. There's no doubt about it.
If you guys could recommend one craft beer to try for the fall-winter season, and there's probably not one, but one or two of them, and preferably one that you guys produce in your own house, because I would like to try some.
I have mine, but I'll let you opine on that one.
Root of all evil, which I can grab over here. We happen to have a sample of it.
Yes.
That's
what I was talking about. That was amazing.
Was released last week, and so it's out in the market. It is a black ale as opposed to a stout or a porter or a black IPA. So it combines attributes of those three relatively similar beers, but it stands on its own as having some attributes of all three, but not being any one of the aforementioned. We simply call it a black ale. It's 7.5% alcohol, and it's got a boatload of hops in it. But it's also got a very complex malt profile. It's made with 7 different malts and blackstrap molasses as well. So it's got, again, its own unique character, and it's perfect for fall, winter.
And you guys won an award for that one recently, right?
Shameless plug. I love it.
Yeah, but now that you brought it up, the Great International Beer Festival in Providence, it was held this past weekend on the 8th of November in Providence. So we received a gold medal for that one, for Root of Evil.
How many beers are you guys pitted up against?
Well, total in the competition, there was 710, I think, was the total number. No, it's not the other, but it was one of several, and we got 4 silver medals and 2 bronze medals.
3? Do we have 7 medals?
We did.
7.
It's hard to keep track once you hit a certain point.
So my last question, just kind of looking out over the industry, and actually, one thing I did want to get into briefly, because I know that this could go on for a long time. Distribution. I talked with Yeppe about this for a little bit. What are the problems with distribution, and what can the American people and those watching do to help, to fix that? It sounds to me like
state to state?
kind of. What's that?
Like state to state distribution?
Yeah. Well, yeah. You guys can probably talk about distribution better, but I understand that it's kind of gridlocked with very old traditions, and that it doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon.
Well, the way the distribution system works is, first of all, you can choose to self-distribute, which means you're in charge of buying trucks, hiring salespeople, service calls to retailers, midnight calls for empty kegs, and so forth. And if you're going to distribute beyond your local area, that's a difficult road to go down. Not many people do, and some who started out that way eventually go to the other form of distribution, which is, this is the classic American model where we would assign the rights to our brand to a distributor for a distinct territory. So in Connecticut, we have 3 distributors, and each one has a specific territory in which they buy the beer from us, and then they sell it to retailers, off-premise retailers, grocery, liquor stores, or on-premise, which would be taverns and restaurants and bars and so forth. And then our salespeople work side by side with theirs to cultivate the business, and you work closely with the distributor to make sure they're in alignment with your strategy, make sure that they take all your products in, and make sure that they take care of shelf life and all the quality stuff. And usually it's really effectively a marriage because you can't get divorced.
Right.
In almost every state, once you give the rights, contractual rights of your brand to a distributor, and let's say a year later they decide they don't want to spend any time on it, or they're distracted by a big brewer who says, I want more of your time spent on my brand, and here's how much I'm going to pay you to do that, you can get frustrated, but you have no recourse to take the brand away and give it to another distributor. Now, in defense of a distributor, that guy's spending money to develop your brand on your behalf, and all that investment, he wants to protect it. So that there's this give and take in the world of brewers and distributors that has been going on since 1933, and it's still evolving. I mean, the laws are changing, and brewers or distributors are getting smart about many of them about not taking on too many brands that they can't manage, and so they're learning and we're learning, but it's a turbulent situation, to put it briefly.
Do you think that will change? Is there hope of that changing?
That'd be like, I don't know. That's like moving mountains and stuff. To predict that, it's really hard because there really are pluses and minuses. There's good and bad about everything, and by and large, distributors, they do serve a very meaningful function for most companies. So to get that to change, you'd have to blow up the whole system, and I don't see that happening too quickly.
Yeah.
So what's next for the brewery?
I will say that there have been changes to distribution laws, like in New York. There's a new law where if your brand represents less than 3% of the total volume of a distributor, this is a very brief summary of it. There's lots of different facets to this, but if you're less than 3%, then you can tell that distributor, I want out, and you can pay the distributor for the fair market value of the rights to your brand, and then have another distributor.
So you're buying yourself out almost? You
can buy yourself out or get another distributor to do that for you. Now that's a new law in New York. It just went into effect, I think, a couple years ago. I don't think there's any instances of that blowing up and not working. I don't think too many people have attempted to do it. One or two have. But I think that's the next wave, is for more states to try to enact that type of legislation to give more flexibility to the small brewers or anybody who wants to get out of one of these contracts.
Yeah. Yeah, on the one hand, it seems like an incredible logistical operation for the distributors who are, it's quite necessary. But on the other hand, it seems like there should be some flexibility just because that's typically how business works, right? So
yeah, no, it
struck me as strange that you get locked into contracts forever with people.
It can be. It is very frustrating. We're only in 4 states, so we haven't had any bad experiences. I used to work in other breweries, and there were plenty of bad experiences. I mean, in some places, we'd ship to a distributor, and that distributor would then ship it to another territory and violate the other distributor's territory. I mean, all kinds of machinations were going on. It was ugly, and all of a sudden, your legal bills start going up, and it's a negative behavior, unfortunately. But so it is frustrating.
All right, on our sequel episode, we'll dive into the world of distribution. How about that?
With somebody else besides me.
Cool. I think we're out of time, and Alexis dropped off. So just wanted to thank you guys again for hanging out with us. Again, if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it. It's on theverge.com and on youtube.com. Small Empires Episode 3. And we do this every week. We hang out with Alexis, the showrunners, and the person or people who are in the episode. So if you want, join us next week, probably same time, but there will be an announcement on the site. Yeah, Brad and Phil, thanks for hanging out.
What exit off the 95 again?
31, Honey Spot Road on the northbound.
31, all right. Or if you're taking the Metro North.
Yes, Metro North is only a mile away. It's a nice cold walk in the winter. It'll cheer you up when you get here.
Yeah.
Stratford Station, right?
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Great being on here.
Good one. Bye.